Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into Hannah and Erik Go Birding. We're a couple of bird brains looking for adventure and some birds.
I'm Hannah and he's Erik.
And we bring you this podcast to share our adventures with you and talk about random other thoughts on birding topics. Just a couple of disclaimers, we're not experts. Just a couple of disclaimers, we're not experts. And if we discuss any controversial material, we hope you keep an open mind, but also remember what we discuss, it's our own opinions.
First off, I'd like to thank those of you who have rated and reviewed the podcast. We had a couple new ratings on Apple Podcasts and also Stitcher and on our Facebook.
Exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. People actually like us,
Yes.
sort of, or fake it.
They're pretending to our faces, I guess.
Yeah, that's nice of them still.
Yeah.
By doing so, you're helping us grow and top the charts of the natural history category. Yay!
Yes.
Not a whole lot of competition. We did want to respond to a review from Linda on Apple Birding field sounds.
Yeah, so while we're out in the field, I typically use my Android phone. I have a Samsung Galaxy S7, and I use an app called RecForge 2. And it was a free app I could download. It records in .wav format, so it's really easy for me to email to myself and then download onto the computer a little bit of edits to be able to add it to the podcast here or to put it on our eBird checklists.
And we did use the voice memos on my iPhone a couple times, which make really good recordings, and you can post that on iNaturalist or eBird, but it doesn't really convert to the form of file. Am I saying that right? That we use to make the podcast. So we haven't used that Am I saying that right? That we use to make the podcast. So we haven't used that, but it's still a good way to record sounds.
Yeah, it records high quality sound on the iPhone, but it records it in a format that's Apple specific.
Of course.
So you can't really move it from place to place. You can't edit anything without downloading some Apple software to do that. So
it depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah, if you already have Apple software, then it probably would work great. Yeah. But we don't have that.
Well, we have iTunes.
We have iTunes, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways.
So in this week's episode, we will be talking about our recent trip to South Florida and about field guides.
Yeah, so I guess, do we have any birding news this week, Hannah?
As usual, a couple things. There have been a few rarities that are sticking around, and those include the little egrets in the Northeast that have been around for quite a while. One seems to be taking a vacation as it's traveled from Connecticut to Rhode Island. So cool. And those are code 4s from the ABA, which we did talk about in one of our early podcasts. So if you are not sure what that means, go ahead and listen to all our podcasts if you'd like to learn more about it, or check the association. They have a great little blog about it. A thick-billed vireo had been seen in Florida, and that's a code 4, and we'll talk about that one a little bit later. There's been a red-footed booby that was seen on a pelagic trip in California. That's also code 4. And Alaska's had a lot of activity recently. That's also code 4. And Alaska's had a lot of activity recently. There's a taiga and willow flycatcher. Both are code 4s. And then British Columbia has had a little stint, which is a code 4, and then snowy plover and white-winged dove, which, are common in other places throughout the U.S. So not super rare, but just...
into migration, getting some crazy things popping up.
Yeah. So this weekend, getting into our trip, was full of a weird series of miracles, I feel.
Miracles? I guess you can call them those.
I'm being optimistic.
Yeah. Look at positive spin.
It was Labor Day weekend, and it's about an 8-hour drive down there from Tallahassee. So we left Friday after work, and not only are we bird nerds, but we're also Disney fans too. So we stayed in Orlando for the night and went to the Food and Wine Fest at Epcot, which was
opening
great.
Weekend.
Yeah, it was really good too. And we went on Spaceship Earth. Only ride we could get on, but
yeah, everything was just busy as heck.
Yeah, but we ate a lot of really good international food.
Yeah, it was some pretty good food. But so any of you guys that aren't familiar with pelagics, haven't experienced a pelagic trip before, it's basically a boat ride to go look for seabirds. It's basically a boat ride to go look for seabirds. It's mostly birds that don't typically come to shore, or if they come to shore, it's not really here in America. It'd be somewhere way up north or way down south where they're nesting. They're birds like albatross, petrels, storm petrels, shearwaters, and shearwaters, and tropic birds. The boats, they'll go out about 20 miles out or so, be to the edge of the continental shelf, or like down here, it's out in the Gulf Stream to go find these birds.
Yeah. And, it's just crazy for me to think in the grand and just happen upon a bird. I think that's just incredible. That's a little miracle for me. Keeping with that theme.
I think it's crazy because it's like you said, we're just out in the middle of nowhere, basically. You can't see land. You can't see anything.
You can't see what's underwater unless you have fancy sonar, which the boat does. But I'm not looking at it.
If you're a complete layman, and all of a sudden birds just kind of fly by.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just that those two little things, the happenstance happens.
Yeah, these little birds with an 8-inch wingspan or a 10-inch wingspan just go flying by. It's crazy. Or
in an albatross, like a 10-foot wingspan.
Yeah, big massive albatross. Yeah, yeah. But I guess with knowing the current, they've got it nailed down. They know where we're going every time, so they get us there.
And we just get on the boat and go.
Yeah.
So Saturday we woke up and headed down towards Miami, which is actually a pretty long drive on an empty highway with very few exits. So please make sure if you ever do the drive from Orlando to Miami that you got plenty of gas and a $16.50 toll to get down there. So prepare.
Yeah, I was really surprised. We were looking at the card thinking, oh, well, it'd be like $8, $9, $10, whatever it was. And then we get there and it's $16.50. It's, oh my gosh. That was insane.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah, so besides pelagic species that we were targeting for the weekend...
It's a lot.
Yeah, so besides pelagic species that we were targeting for the weekend, we had a few others in South Florida. The Zenaida dove that
we've talked about multiple times.
It's a code 4, right?
Maybe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so the Zenaida dove down there, black whiskered vireo, smooth-billed Ani, and
Miami, and headed straight for the Zenaida dove. It had been seen a few days before in the West Kendall agricultural area.
So I love eBird, and I love all the data that's in there, but got kind of frustrated with the data that was put in there for the Zenaida dove. We honestly didn't look that closely at a lot of the comments, mostly just where the
bird had been seen.
Where the bird had been seen, the hot spot that the bird had been seen at. So we put the directions from the link on eBird to the West Kendall agricultural area, which brings us to the GPS coordinates for it, which that's not unusual. But it's out in the middle of a field, and since we were in the Adventure Mini, we definitely didn't want to go driving through the middle of a field to try to find the bird and get stuck or something.
Yeah. So we kept driving around because, like he said, it took us to the coordinates, which was in the middle of the field. So we were trying to figure out where to get the best vantage point to see it, best way to access it. So after like an hour of trying and driving around,
those blocks were huge.
Yeah. The streets like didn't connect.
Yeah. It was a lot of missed attempts and tries.
It was frustrating. We reread all of the comments about where it had been seen and finally found out that what we should have been doing was driving to the end of this unfinished road and look at some ponds, which aren't really ponds, at the end of it.
Yeah, it's the area. It was an agricultural spot at the fringe of a neighborhood. So there was a neighborhood. Yes, it looked like it was going to be a...
It looked like it was going to be a development, and then it fell through.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where the dove had been being seen at. Yeah,
in those random little ponds that had formed from rainwater.
Yeah.
So like you said, that road had been built, the land had been cleared, and they never grew for whatever reason, never developed for whatever reason. So there was a lot of vegetation, and then just that standing water, and it actually did make for some good bird habitat.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty good little spot, but I was a little frustrated with the extra waste of time and gas. I mean, honestly, it kind of was our fault for not looking too closely at the comments and scrolling through them. But I also kind of feel that the hotspot was being used as an anchor point for the sighting.
I agree, because where the coordinate took like a quarter of a mile away from where the dove was being seen.
Oh, it was more than that. It was almost a full mile.
You think?
Oh yeah, it was almost a full mile as the crow flies from where the dove was being seen. But the kind of ironic thing is, once we looked at more of the data, there were a bunch of personal locations. But those weren't the data. there were a bunch of personal locations, but those weren't the majority of them. The majority of them were posted to the hotspot, but the personal location was right on where we should have been, that everyone was posting them. So maybe if we would have done a little bit more research, but it was still, I still feel like an anchor point was being used and getting overused.
Yeah, we're frustrated with that. We wandered around a little bit and saw some shorebirds, stilts, plovers, killdeer, and a few doves, but we didn't see the Zenaida dove anywhere.
Yeah, unfortunately. Oh well.
A lot of wasted time. But,
That's alright. Blackneck stilt, it was first blackneck stilt for us in that county.
Yeah. Well, and, that's why you chase birds. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
What's going on in our environment right now. But there's a thunderstorm outside, and then our neighbors upstairs may have some, I don't know, like Great Danes or something running around.
A herd of elephants or something. Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on up there. So it's loud.
Eric cuts a lot of that sound out, but we apologize if it's overwhelming.
Yeah, if I can't get it all, we tried. But anyways, we from the Kendall agricultural area, we moved on to our next stop, the Robert is Here fruit stand. It's a pretty nice little fruit stand. It's basically fruit stand gone wild. At the real close to the Everglades. Real close to the Everglades National Park. They have fantastic milkshakes and a huge variety, and they're pretty inexpensive. So we've been there before, and we knew we were going to be by, so we had to go there again.
Yeah, and it's just an interesting place to check out, because like Eric said, it's a fruit stand gone wild. It's just an interesting place to check out, because like Eric said, it's a fruit stand gone wild. The owner has like a book about him, or that he wrote, that's for sale, and he like wandered around, I think, the first time we were there. But it's just an interesting place you have to stop by. They don't really have food though, so don't like necessarily. They had a couple sandwiches.
Yeah, they had like 2 options for snacks or something.
But also the first time we went there, I noticed they had these ginormous avocados. So I was like, okay, gonna get one of these avocados, because as a millennial, I love avocados, even though I haven't gotten to the avocado toast thing yet. So we got one. It was like $3. I've been eating on it for like a week and a half.
It's literally still in the fridge right now. Yes, and that was like 5 days ago.
And I took some for lunch on a salad today, and there's still like half of it left.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really good too.
It's huge. That thing, it was like 3 pounds.
Yeah, well, in the pit, like, I expected the pit to be like most of it, but it was like just a little bit smaller than a baseball. So it didn't even take up like
proportionally.
Yeah, a huge percent of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, besides that, it's just a great road trip, side stop. And there's also a couple purple martin houses that are right outside of it that claim to be the southernmost purple martin houses in the U.S. So definitely have to go get that for your county list.
Yeah, there weren't any purple martins this time. It was full of house sparrows, but the first time we went through, there was tons of purple martins.
Yeah, in March.
In March, yeah. Yeah, so after Robert is Here, about our next planned stop, Smooth Bill Donnie.
So excited about that avocado.
Yeah, we just got on the road, got about halfway to what was going to be our third stop, and realized, oh, we forgot all about the Smooth Bill Donnie. So we just continued on. We headed down to Key Largo and John Pennycamp. Pennycamp?
Yep, Pennycamp.
For a little snorkeling and a chance to look for the vireo, the black-whiskered vireo, and the Antillean nighthawk. This is a spot in the Great Florida Birding and Wildlife Trail that's been known for hosting some pretty good specialties like mangrove cuckoo, black-whiskered vireo, of course, white-crowned pigeons, Bahama mockingbird, and thick-billed vireo.
Yeah, and I think actually all the stops that we mentioned, except for the agricultural area, are Great Florida Birding and Wildlife Trail sites.
Yeah, we kind of follow that trail around pretty consistently.
It's got some great information on it.
Yeah, we didn't bird too hard when we got there, though, unfortunately, because it was hot. We didn't bird too hard when we got there, though, unfortunately, because it was hot, and we kind of wanted to snorkel and swim around a little bit.
Yeah, because you gotta go to a state park, Coral Reef State Park. You want to see what the state park is protecting.
Yeah, I guess so. You had to see you just see a bunch of water on the surface. Oh yeah, it's over there.
And I love state parks. In Florida, the state parks name just get me. They have so many words in them.
Oh no, seriously, John Pennycamp Coral Reef State Park. It's like 5 words.
Well, another one we went to has like 6 or 7 words in it.
Oh my god.
But I can't talk. I worked at Sheldon Lake State Park Environmental Learning Center.
Yeah,
and Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park.
That's a lot of words.
But the park that we went to, the Penny Camp Coral Reef State Park, is just beautiful. It's all mangrove lagoons with a few trails. Had some like little boardwalks that looked into the mangroves. And it's like a perfect place to just lay on the beach and go for a swim, have a picnic. There's also a part of it has a boat launch. All of your recreational needs.
That sounded ridiculous.
You sound ridiculous.
Well,
not being sponsored by them.
Yeah, seriously. But the water was perfect. There wasn't that many people there, which I was kind of surprised about being Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be slammed.
Hot afternoon.
Yeah, the water was nice, and we saw some fish and some jellyfish. It was beautiful. It was really, really nice water. It was mostly clear, except for when we stirred it up.
Yeah, but make sure to bring like water socks or something because
definitely.
We walked out into the snorkel area. Oh my gosh.
It's like razor blades on your feet.
I know, but it's rocks.
Oh.
Yeah, our feet are delicate.
Apparently.
We need to get some of those like barefoot shoes or something.
Too many years wearing work boots, I guess.
Yeah, like you said, the park is just gorgeous. So once we had enough of exploring the park and snorkeling, we were kicking ourselves for not exploring the park and snorkeling. We were kicking ourselves for not seeing that smooth-billed Ani that we had forgotten about, so we went back and looked for it.
Yeah, it had been recently recorded at the Frog Pond area, or the Lucky Hammock Wildlife Management Area, which is also on the Great Florida Birding and Wildlife Trail.
Yay!
Yeah, it's also on the Great Florida Birding and Wildlife Trail.
Yay!
Yeah, it's kind of an odd spot.
Yeah, it's just outside of the Everglades National Park. And what we've seen of it, it's like an abandoned roadway that's maybe like a mile long. And it has like an abandoned fence property on the side. Like it was supposed to be a development or something. And then there's fields on the other side. And about quarter of a mile, maybe half a mile down, there's like that. Yeah, there's like a small little hammock that's like maybe a quarter of an acre. It's pretty small.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with like when we're referring to like a hammock, it's like a little stand of trees.
The southern word, Texas, and we learned all about mott's too.
Yeah. The same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different terminology for the same things.
Colloquial,
yeah.
But it's a great addition for anyone that wants to visit the Everglades National Park. It's right outside of it. It's a nice walk to get to the hammock. Like I said, it's about a half mile from the parking lot. You can also bring a bike and ride around, but you really wouldn't have too far to go if you had your bike. It's maybe like I said, like maybe a mile out and back.
Yeah.
And add that to the Everglades. Well, with the Everglades, you can get like over 100 miles of biking out there.
You could ride for days. So I have no complaints. About the eBird hotspot here. There was some great comments from the previous person who had seen the Ani of exactly where to look. The hotspot's right on where we're looking to go. And the person that said they saw it about 200 yards, about halfway down to the hammock is about what we're looking at 200 yards. So we started walking.
Very specific. eBird.
Yeah.
Comment. So we walked down the main road towards the hammock, carefully watching and waiting.
And nothing. Well, nothing at first. We walked all the way to nothing at first. We walked all the way to the thicket of trees, and we started to get discouraged. It was just nothing. There was a couple mockingbirds flew by, a couple loggerhead shrikes. Nothing super exciting. I think there was a handful of vultures flying up high. So we decided, once we got down to the hammock, out our phones and kind of refamiliarize ourselves with a call of the smooth-billed Ani from our iBird Pro app.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say something about birding ethics. Having spent a lot of time working for the state in Texas, we both developed strong feelings about and agree on the use of playbacks as an attractant purely for recreational birding. In Texas, within any state park, it's illegal to use playbacks as it can cause undue stress on the birds.
Yeah, who knows how many times someone's played alarm calls for that bird, and it's come out day in and day out to search for a person. There's not a competitor there. There's nothing. There's not a competitor there. There's nothing.
It's just a waste of time.
It's just a waste of time and waste of energy for them to come out and try to defend territory when there's nothing to be defending it against. And I think that's the main reason that that Texas has that rule, just because it's harassment.
Animal harassment.
It's animal harassment, especially like in the main time that they're going to reply to it is during breeding season, and they're hard pressed. They've got chicks to feed, they've got territory to defend, all the things that they need to do as a bird, and we're pulling them away from that constantly. And if people before you, people after you, one person may not be an issue, but people after you, one person may not be an issue, but person after person after person doing it becomes an issue.
And as we said in our intro, that we might discuss controversial topics, and these are our opinions on it. So you may have your own definition of harassment, but that's how we feel about playbacks.
Exactly.
So we appreciate our opinions.
Yeah, don't
hate on us.
Yeah, don't hurt us too much in the comments and reviews.
So anyways, once we took a few seconds to remind ourselves of what the Ani sounds like, we began walking back towards the car. Like Erik was talking about with the playbacks, we accomplished this by playing the call, but at a volume that's similar to like talking to someone on the phone. We didn't play it aloud to attract the bird to come to us. We just played it quietly to ourselves.
Yeah, you turn it down to like one of the lowest settings that your phone's at, and you just hold your phone right up to your ear.
Yeah. Like, go until you can't hear it, and then go up one click.
Yeah.
Like, go until you can't hear it, and then go up one click.
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden, we heard it. I had to check Erik's phone to make sure that he hadn't played the call out, but it wasn't. It was actually the Ani calling.
Yeah, a real recording of this instead of a playback recording.
Just for you all.
Yeah, so it was super close. It was loud. I only got a real short little snippet of it, but I think it's pretty recognizable. I was also able to get a couple quick photos with the camera, but they're pretty out of focus. They're on the eBird checklist. It's the shape of an Ani.
Yeah, you can tell.
You can see that it's got the Ani bill,
yeah.
But I definitely need to perfect those skills, photography and audio recording.
Yeah, someday.
Yeah.
So we saw it, we recorded it, and we took a picture. That's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's everything.
The trifecta.
It's all of them.
I think we can fully count the species for the day, despite our misgivings earlier about dipping on yet another bird we chased across the state.
Yeah, so at that point, a storm started to blow in. We had some thunder and lightning, and it looked like it was right about to rain. Like, we could see that front coming right at us. So we headed back to the car. On the way back to the car, though, we did see another Florida lifer, which isn't a very exciting Florida lifer, but it's been one that's been on my list for a while now. A white-winged dove. I don't know why it took us so long to find one, and it wasn't something we've been searching for, but I've been very curious why we haven't seen one.
Yeah, in Texas, they're all over the place.
Sit that on the life list for Florida. I don't know if they're uncommon, but I've got it now.
They just hate us. So the storm chased us back to the hotel, and we went to sleep early in anticipation of the pelagic the next day. So Sunday morning, I wake up to my alarm at 4 o'clock in the morning because we have to get to the dock at 6 o'clock in the morning, and opened up Facebook. And one of the first posts I saw is the cancellation of the pelagic on the Florida Birding and Rarities page. And unfortunately, due to the storms, the sea would be too rough for the little pelagic to be issued.
Well, we hadn't really anticipated this. There was a big storm blowing in that wasn't supposed to hit until like that evening, but I guess they issued the advisory early.
I didn't even think that would happen.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So, anyways, we hastily came up with Plan B, and we drove right back down to Key Largo, where we'd been the day before. To search some other hot spots down there for the black whiskered vireo again, and hoping that we could get out there early enough to catch an Antillean nighthawk.
Yeah, so we got up quickly and drove down that way, and we ended up at Dagny Johnson Key Largo Hammock Botanical State Park. I gotta count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait. 8. Yeah, 8 words. That's
8
a lot.
words. Yeah, that's a long state park name.
I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, right around sunrise.
Yeah, when did we get there, Hannah?
I got distracted. That was once slated to become a condo development and has one of the largest tracts of West Indian tropical hardwood hammock.
Yeah, so on our way out to this 8-word state park, we saw tons of common nighthawks on the highway. I don't know, probably 30 or 40.
Oh, yeah, lots.
At least. We got about maybe 5 minutes before we got there, and that was the last time we saw a nighthawk.
Yeah, they stopped.
They stopped entirely. Yeah, but anyways, no nighthawks. But once we got there, there's looks like there's about 6 miles of trails at this abandoned-looking, apocalyptic-feeling park.
Yeah.
We started down one of the trails. There was a handful of common things: black and white warblers, blue-gray gnatcatchers, white-eyed vireos, and kind of what I thought was kind of ridiculous numbers of white-crowned doves flying overhead. White-crowned pigeons. Numbers of white-crowned doves flying overhead. White-crowned pigeons. Oh, shoot. Yeah, white-crowned pigeons, not white-crowned doves.
Yeah, I wish we would have seen a white-crowned dove.
I know.
That would have been pretty cool.
Well, I can't go back and fix it because it's too far, but white-crowned pigeons is what we were seeing and what we were looking for, not white-crowned doves.
Again, the rainstorm made us turn around and head back. But the rain stopped as soon as we reached the picnic area that's about a quarter of a mile into the park. There were a lot of birds hopping around the trees there. We were able to spot a prairie warbler, and then in the background, there was a black-whiskered vireo. We chased it down the trail for a few minutes before it flitted back into...
Seen again. Never. And I got a picture of it.
Yay!
But I'm not even going to post it, because it's more of like kind of a thicker blur among some blurry branches with some blurry leaves in front of it.
You're getting much better at this photography.
Yeah, it's intense. I don't even know if I can tell that it was actually blur. It might have just been like... I might have had the lens cover on. There was like 5 photos in a row and they looked like that. It was awful.
Yeah, so the rainstorm was actually kind of a common theme throughout the rest of the day. After it chased us north a ways, we kept trying to stop and bird at these different locations. We stopped and tried to get that thick-billed vireo that was at that one park in that place.
In that one
downpoured.
Oh, yeah. The sky just opened up.
I don't remember what park that was.
The one with the lighthouse?
Yeah.
No, I can't remember which one it was.
Well, anyways, it was where the thick-billed vireo had been seen. It had been tagged like the day before we went there.
But we got it. The sky literally just completely opened up and we were
only like 100 feet from the car, and we
luckily
ran for the car.
I left the camera in the car because I was kind of concerned that it might rain, and I'm so glad that I left the camera in there because we were soaked from head to toe in like 10 seconds.
See, another miracle. But yeah, it kept chasing us north, and we decided to just head like really far in front of it, and we went to go look for the long-tailed yager that had been seen in Port St. Lucie, or just St. Lucie.
St. Lucie?
Yeah, county.
St. Lucie County, yeah. We went to a few of the beach access points, and there were bait balls of little bait fish at every single access point. There was tons and tons of terns and a handful of gulls that were kind of mingling among the terns. It was a crazy feeding frenzy. There was tarpon all over in the water.
They were huge, and they were
tarpon.
only like a few feet from the...
Yeah, so we ended up spending, I think it was over 2 hours.
Maybe.
Just there looking at seabirds.
Just
over
one after
and over,
another.
And taking photos of laughing gull after laughing gull after laughing gull.
It's got to be something different.
It's got to be something more exciting. I'm looking at photos and not seeing anything different.
Ugh.
It was tons of terns.
We were pretty bummed that we had missed the pelagic, but we did see some pretty good birds and a couple new interesting birding spots. And as we said before, this weekend was full of miracles. By missing the pelagic, we saw the vireo, we missed the spot for the smooth-billed ani and went back and got it, and a white-winged dove. So,
yeah,
kind of evened out.
I guess you could call it a miracle.
I mean, we like...
It's a little miracle.
I mean, how big do you want?
I don't know.
But like...
Earth-shattering.
I mean, like, so far I feel like with chasing birds, we're like at 50% of the ones we go out for we actually get.
I guess 50%'s all right.
Yeah, I mean, that's better than...
It's better than 0%.
Well, that's pretty good batting average, you know?
Yeah. So while we were out looking for this whole weekend, pretty much any time we're out looking for rarities and lifers.
Driving around in the rain.
Yeah. We need a field guide. Whether we use it only in the back to it when we're sitting at home, we rely on field guides constantly to ensure that we're making the correct identifications.
Yes, and we had discussed this in the car, and we decided to pose a question on our Facebook page, as well as share it to the World Girl Birders page that I keep talking about field guides. Girl Birders page that I keep talking about field guides. As we were driving around, we talked about our field guide preference. And then we also talked about the preference between paper versus digital and authors and styles. And we wanted to know how others felt.
Yeah, we had a really good turnout from that who responded and everybody who commented, because it made us think of more things while we were reading through the comments of stuff that, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it was a good team effort, I thought. So the initial question that I posed was, what do you prefer, printed or electronic field guide? And then I had an additional comment. With your favorite guide. We received a lot of answers that said both. And so I tried to clarify that by saying if you're unable to choose a preference, then please select the one you use the most, whether it's printed or electronic. And I'd like to apologize for the confusion on this whole thing, because there were some people that were confused on what I was asking. I realize a lot of people use both electronic and printed, but either I'm not as Facebook savvy as I thought, or Facebook does actually limit it, but it only allowed me to have two answers on the poll. So you could I could only put two options. So I'm sorry about that, and we chose that the options were printed or electronic, but even though we realize you may use both. However, we also wanted to force you to select one or the other, because when it comes down to it, you do have a preference. Like, what do you go towards first? What do you go to?
You're only going to be able to pick up one at a time. Which is the first one you pick up?
Like, if someone comes into my office to ask about a bird, I have books and I have apps available, and I pull out the book so I can show them more easily. And also, it's easier for me to flip through. I feel like I know the book better because that's what I started with. I know the book better because that's what I started with, was a book rather than an app.
Yeah, and initially, when we were discussing this, before we'd even posted it or anything, we were just talking about kind of the visual aspects. Like, that was kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if you were really thinking just visual, but I was really thinking visual, that with written guide, the printed guides, usually, if you only have one guide, usually only have a handful of pictures, 2 or 3 pictures. But if you have the digital guide, you can oftentimes have a ton of media to choose from, to look at pictures, illustrations, all sorts of different things. And I think it was Jamie on our Facebook page commented about audio, and that
that's something we hadn't even thought of.
I don't even know why I didn't think audio. Like, that's definitely a reason to be on a digital.
We use that constantly, and we also talked about that earlier.
Exactly.
How we use that. So our poll had about 161 votes, which which was actually a huge turnout. I did not think we would get that many people. So
that's more people than listen to the podcast.
Right? Nice. More than our Facebook friends. So again, we really appreciate you all commenting and taking the poll. The results were much different apps rather than the field guide, but it actually turned out to be about 70% preferred to use a printed field guide, and only 30% prefer to use an electronic field guide.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising, especially reading the comments. The comments really lean towards digital, but maybe the printed people just didn't comment.
Or, like they said, both.
People just didn't comment.
Or, like they said, both, and they're like, well, I really can't go without the book.
Yeah.
If you could only have one.
And maybe that's what it was. Maybe battery's going dead or something. I don't know. But personally, though, if I'm at home or I'm in the car trying to look something up, I generally use a paper field guide. I'll pull my Big Monster Sibley, or National Geographic, or Peterson, or one of the other.
We actually have a lot of field guides.
A ridiculous number.
And I collect.
We have like 4 boxes of them.
I collect old field guides, so anytime I go to like a used bookstore, I go find the oldest one and then make Erik buy it for me.
Well, our oldest one's like from like the 30s, right?
Actually, great grandma's that I found yesterday when we were going through them. It was from 1923.
1923 for a field guide.
She got it in 1938 too.
That's crazy. That's an old field guide.
Yeah, it's super old.
It's probably got all sorts of... I haven't looked through it that carefully. I'm not sure it's got all sorts of weird, inappropriate names for birds. Like Old Squaw and stuff like that. Birds. Like Old Squaw and stuff like that.
Yeah, great tits.
Yeah. But anyways, generally I use a paper guide unless I'm actually out in the field. And just for ease of just that it's light and I don't have to carry a book, I usually use a digital guide when I'm actually out in the field. I usually use the internet. I'll go to Cornell's All About Birds, or just go to Google if my iBird Pro doesn't have enough pictures or enough examples. I'll just go right to the internet and see if I can find some more examples. Or I'll go to eBird and go through the Macaulay Library and start looking at pictures there. But mostly I use digital out in the field just because of that, and also the audio component. Being able to with the smooth build Omni, it's massively useful. I mean, you can see that the guide will say tweet tweet tweet, but it's like, all right, well,
you can't figure that out in your head.
I don't know. You have a hard time with maps. I have a hard time reading phonetics.
Weird. You're so good at doing that. You're a liar. But looking, you're a liar. So looking through the comments that everyone was so graciously wrote on there, we had about 5 people that preferred to use the Sibley app. 1 vote for the Audubon app, 1 books. The Sibley book was the clear winner with 3 votes. The Collins book, the European Collins book, had 2 votes and 1 vote for the Stokes guides.
Yeah, Sibley.
I was bummed that no one chose my favorite field guide and app, the National Geographic Guide and iBird Pro. The book isn't huge, and the book and the app are both really good quality. We've had the book sitting in my car that we use in the Adventure Mini. We use it a ton, and it holds up.
For a few years now.
Yeah, and it's small, so I can put it in a bag. But I really like that one. I was surprised that Peterson's wasn't mentioned either. That's pretty. But I really like that one. I was surprised that Peterson's wasn't mentioned either. That's a pretty good app too.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, booked. And Crosley wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, Crosley wasn't mentioned. A lot of people like Crosley.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't have a Crosley.
No, we need. If somebody wants to send us one, we take it.
Yeah. So one frustration that I do find between. Yeah. So one frustration that I do find between books and field guides, and written field guides, is when you're scrolling through the field guide or scrolling through the digital field guide, at least with iBird Pro, it's hard to find things within the same taxonomic family.
Because you'll look in sandpiper,
yeah,
but that doesn't get certain shorebirds.
Yeah, Dunlin and stuff like that.
Yeah, that don't have sandpiper in the name.
Exactly. You have yellow legs. Don't come up when you type in sandpipers. Things like that.
Even though they're closely related, and so you have to go back to the beginning and scroll all the way through
the whole thing.
Which if it's like a warbler or a sparrow, that's gonna take forever.
Takes all day. You just flip right to it, and you just kind of flip page back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you end up comparing and stuff like that. Pretty fair. I feel like a little easier in the paper guide.
But on that, when it's warblers or it's getting into the fall warbler migration, if we see a warbler that I'm not super familiar with, I'll just type in warbler and it'll pop up and things like that that don't have warbler in their name. But I can just scroll through and see the faces of all of them.
Yeah, and that's the iPhone version.
Yeah,
if it has that.
Oh, yours doesn't?
No, the Android version doesn't have the faces. It has a little tiny picture of the entire body.
Oh, that's annoying.
In the little thumbnail. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a little different.
I'm so annoying.
In the little thumbnail, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a little different.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But my biggest frustration with some birders is that they shame others for using a field guide. I've been shamed before for taking a field guide.
Times too.
So usually when we go out, we see a lot of birds, and of course, there's ones that I don't know.
Oh, absolutely, every time.
Yeah, and when I see a bird I don't know, I want an answer right now.
Exactly.
I don't want to go back and look in the car and see what it was. I don't have time for that.
Seriously, ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time. Because you can't know every bird every time. Seriously. We have enough humility to know that we don't know everything. We know that we don't know everything. We are perfectly willing to say, I do not know.
I think we say it in the intro that we don't know.
I say it all day long. Somebody's like, hey, where's the bathroom? I'm like, I don't know.
And then there's also the birders that prefer to take notes or drawings of the birds that they're unfamiliar with and look it up when they get back to their house or back to their car. And I think that's nice, but I wouldn't be able to jot down everything. I don't know what. I mean, I know some field marks. Okay, well, an eyebrow is going to be distinctive. Maybe wing bars are going to be distinctive. Color the legs, color the iris. Difficult identification, you never know what's going to be that one thing
that
puts it over the edge to be able to get the real identification on it.
These two birds are exactly the same except for this one thing that I forgot to look at.
It's the underwing coverts on the right wing are different, and that's the one thing that you didn't look at. And
but all in all, it seems like a lot of people agree that they use both the printed versions and the apps, and everybody has their own preference for which one they use. But people often like to have one in the car, like the book in the car, and then their app in the field, which is about the way we do it. Sometimes when we're traveling abroad, of course, when we're traveling abroad, of course, we'll have the book with us because they don't have an app in that country, or it's easier for us to look in the book for quick identifications. But there's no wrong way to do it, and there's no wrong field guide to use, so don't let anybody shame you.
Exactly. You can use a field guide. It's okay.
It's all about you do you.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's all we have. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and or learned something. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Music, and anywhere else you listen to us. If you'd like to connect with us, please follow us at Hannah Goes Birding on Instagram, on our Facebook page at Hannah and Eric Go Birding, or email us at hannahhandericgobirding@gmail.com. Again, we'd like to thank everybody for participating in the poll, for listening to us, for rating, review, and subscribing. You guys rock. We really,
you guys are fantastic.
We appreciate it. We're so glad that there's people that actually listen to our ramblings.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
There's people that actually listen to our ramblings.
Yeah, there's a couple of them out there.
Yeah, just a couple. And you guys are awesome. So please go on there and tell us what you hated and tell us what you liked. Share it with your friends and help us build a following like always. And until next time, get out there and go birding.
Yeah, get out there.